Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. Oh, wait a minute, I lost myself. We have a quorum, so we are going to begin. Yeah, you can yell and scream about that. That's a good thing to be happy about. Thank you for all being here. So we call the town meeting to order. I'm going to ask Mrs. Gaynor to come and officially open the town meeting.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Plymouth, to either of the constables of the town of Halifax in the county of Plymouth. Greeting. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town qualified to vote in the elections in the town affairs to meet at the Halifax Elementary School in said Halifax on Saturday, the 12th of September at 9 a.m. in the morning, and therefore to act on the following articles. And you are directed to serve this warrant by posting up attested copies thereof at the Town Hall, Halifax Post Office, and 3 other public places in said town, 14 days at least before the time of holding said meeting. Herefore not, fail not, and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of the meeting. Given under our hands this 19th day of May, as you know we were postponed several times, Troy Garin, Tom Milius, and Gordon Andrews, signed by Constable Thomas Hammond.
Thank you, Mrs. Gaynor. A couple quick things to begin. These are indeed strange and challenging times, and they call us to be much more forgiving and patient with each other as we go about our business. I have always been under the impression that everybody in this town is of great intention. They care about our town. We may have disagreements, but we care about this town and we care about each other. And so I expect that we're going to be doing some things a little bit differently in order to keep people safe and to keep our town meeting moving, but none of it is at risk to the purest form of government anywhere, which is where we have the ability to review important matters that come before the town, and we have the ability to comment and then ultimately to vote on how things should be done. Given those challenging times, I would like us to begin, if we can, just before we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would join me in a moment of silence. Yesterday we observed the 19th observance of 9/11. And as somber and tragic as that event still is with us, keep in mind that 42 people who survived 9/11 have now succumbed to COVID or COVID-related diseases. So let us, in memory of those lost lives, please bow our heads in a moment of silence. Please join with me in the pledge. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be mindful of everyone. I appreciate people wearing masks and the social distancing that you're practicing. As you can tell, we're not only gathered here, but we're gathered in the special all-purpose room, and you can see the screens. This morning, I am appointing Bert Gaynor to be an assistant town manager to help with the count in the other room. Those folks, if you can hear me, please do not feel at all slighted. You actually look to me like you have the cool room. You know, I don't know if there's a tough customers table in there like in Arthur, but you guys get the cool room over there. So we're going to be, and as you can see, we have a little bit of a change in things. This is, I didn't take this personally when the idea came up, because to be honest with you, as you know, I'm visually challenged. And so my hearing usually, although if you talk to my wife, she'll tell you it's not very good. But I can hear things, but we decided that because of the distancing and because this might be easy with 2 rooms, to go to a visual voting process here. So we're hoping that this will help to vote yes for something, green, to vote no for something, red, okay? When we get to that part, we'll go there. We're going to try to do a couple things to expedite matters, move things along, and none of those things to try to move things along is in any desire to limit discussion. If you have matters and questions you are totally free to bring them up. As always in town meeting, please approach the microphone, speak clearly, stand close to the microphone, identify yourself by name and street address, and I will do my best to make sure that everyone gets heard. We have a timing issue. We are going to move to Article 1, and then as soon as we get past that, we are going to go into a special town meeting as we had listed it to be a 9:30 issue. So kind of that's the matter beforehand. So do we have a motion or bringing up Article 1? Reports of the town? Anyone?
So moved.
Yep. So it's been moved?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any reports or discussion? Either selectmen or, no?
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, Mr.
if I
Milius.
may have a few moments to make a few statements. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, we want to first welcome you and thank you for participating today to get the town's business done.
Can you hear him? No. Yeah.
How's that? Better? Oops, yep, I can hear that. I'll start again. Welcome and thank you for participating today so that we can get our town's business done. Obviously, this is a different year. We're here on a Saturday in September as opposed to a Monday night in May, but everything's different, and we've all had to adjust and make do. I was going to prepare something smooth and eloquent, but I'm going to pass on all that. I just want to mention, because I think it needs to be mentioned, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, we want to thank all of our town employees for the incredible challenges they've had to meet and overcome to get things done and keep everyone safe. Starting right out with our first responders in public safety, fire and police. Talk about being on the front lines, especially in the beginning, when we didn't know exactly what we were dealing with, and PPEs, personal protection equipment, was very difficult to come by. And in many cases, the chiefs both had to go searching, not just city by city, state by state, across the country. People were competing across the globe for the same equipment. Very difficult. They did an outstanding job obtaining the necessary products we needed to try to keep everybody safe.
Yes.
Moving on from that, our invisible team. The invisible team I call because the building maintenance people pretty much go unnoticed. They buzz around, take care of their business, and nobody really sees them. But they've put out an outstanding effort, right from getting the PPE equipment, the sanitation equipment, anticipating a lot of things, picking up the fogging machines, taking on the extra responsibilities of doing every building and every town vehicle. In many cases, splitting shifts, coming in on weekends, doing the job pretty much unnoticed. But not just them. We've got so many people to thank. Our highway people kept working, doing the job. They've been working recently trying to help get the schools back open with the roads. If any of you have ever noticed the traffic spilling out onto 106 during a normal year, we anticipate double of that this year. We're trying to take measures to prevent that. Hopefully, we're taking enough measures. Our Council on Aging, talk about a challenge. The most vulnerable of our population being serviced by people who are also vulnerable, and mostly volunteers, or at least a lot of volunteers, a huge challenge. Open every day, or at least services being provided every day. I mentioned our highway, our water department. Every time you turned your tap on, the water was running, and somebody was monitoring it. Huge. Even our library kept providing services in the middle of all this. Think about our town clerk. having to run an election in the middle of all this, the challenges faced by that with separation and those types of issues. Right down to our town hall staff who continue to work through this. When a lot of them could have taken unemployment and the additional federal and state stipends and did not, worked through it and have continued to work through it. And with the help of our building maintenance people who prepared the buildings, we're able to be one of the first communities to open for business to the public again. A huge achievement under the conditions that we had to work under. It goes on and on. Our school staff, the administration at Halifax Elementary School, our administration at Silver Lake, the superintendent. I can't even begin to explain the challenges that have been overcome to try to get the schools back open. Huge achievements. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out. I probably should have written it all down. But I wanted to get the point across that I'm very proud of these people. I know the board is, and you have every reason to also be proud of these people for stepping up and not taking a pass on it. Obviously, we're here to do business. We're going to see the same old articles with different numbers. The town has to spend money to keep working. That's just how it is. This town has always been conservative, and this town meeting has always been thoughtful, and I assume it's going to continue to be thoughtful. We do have challenges. We will overcome them. One of the things I've heard over the years, over and over again, is you people keep spending our money. Well, that's not true. Who spends our money is you. Town meeting spends the money. Not one nickel gets spent in this town that isn't authorized by a town meeting. Not a nickel. There is no secret fund anywhere that everybody gets together in the middle of the night to try to spend. It just isn't done that way. We will move forward. We need to do some things. I know it's a tough time for everybody. A lot of people are hurting. We understand that. Our obligation is to take care of everybody we possibly can and still prepare for the future and do the things necessary. And that's the approach we want to take. As the moderator said, please go forward, be mindful, be respectful. Everybody has an opinion and may not agree with, but that's why we're here, and we're going to move forward. Thank you.
Are there any other reports of the town? Oh, yes. Finance Committee, Ms. Tarzi.
The Finance Committee would like to echo the Board of Selectmen's thanks for not only all of you for being here, but for all of the folks who work for the town. Truly, these are unprecedented times, and I think everyone has really adopted an all-hands-on-deck attitude, including those who volunteer on various boards and committees who've been conducting meetings over Zoom and trying to stand far apart while still get everything done. And we just want to say that we appreciate everyone. I won't reiterate the report from the Finance Committee that's in the front few pages of your warrant. All I want to do is point out a couple key things. The process that we were involved in is described in that report, a process that has been unusual because up until, quite frankly, a few weeks ago, we weren't sure about things like unrestricted government aid from the state. We weren't receiving numbers. We were doing our best estimations as possible. What we have committed to, though, as we have in previous years, is to not tax to what is called the levy limit, or the amount of taxes on real and personal property that the town could take in. We have, in this year, as in all other years, maintained a $300,000 buffer under the levy limit. This means that $300,000 less than the amount to which that we could tax this year on real and personal property. And we tried to fit all other budget items in and around that, not only to ease the burden on taxpayers, not just this year, but every year, because we know it's difficult to see your taxes go up, but also to ensure that whatever comes for the next fiscal year 22, which we'll start working on in a couple short months, also goes as smoothly as possible. So we want to thank the department heads who worked with us on everything, back and forth, a lot of unknowns, a lot of holding patterns that everyone was in. We want to thank all the boards and committees who worked with us again on the budget, and all of you who gave us your input and valued feedback. And again, thank you, and we look forward to continuing to serve you.
One last thing, at least from the moderator's standpoint. These two things that I'm going to suggest to you are not exclusive. Being careful, being safe and healthy, social distancing, wearing masks on the one hand, and number two, supporting local businesses and supporting each other. We can do those things. They're both possible at the same time. And I think because of caring for each other, we will get to a better place and beyond the challenges that we're facing. Anything else before we move? Any other discussion before we move the article? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of accepting Article 1 signify by raising either your green piece of paper or your red piece of paper. I see green here, and Mr. Assistant Moderator Gaynor, how are we doing in your room? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
And what do you have in your room, sir?
We have a unanimous yes.
A unanimous yes. Article 1 passes. All right, at this time, as you well know, we are scheduled at 9:30. We're a little bit beyond that for a special town meeting, so I move that the annual town meeting will be recessed and the special town meeting will be commenced as soon as our clerk opens the meeting. Ms. Gaynor?
To either of the constables of the town of Halifax and the county of Plymouth, greeting. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town, qualified to vote in elections and in town affairs, to meet at the Halifax Elementary School in said Halifax on Saturday, the 12th day of September next, at 9:30 o'clock in the morning, and then and there to act on the following articles. And you are directed to serve this warrant by posting up attested copies thereof at Town Hall, Halifax Post Office, and 3 other public places in said town, 14 days at least before the time of holding said meeting. Hereof fail not, and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of the meeting, as aforesaid. Given under our hands the 27th day of August in the year of our Lord 2020. Thomas Millius, Troy Garin, Gordon C. Andrews, signed by Thomas Schindler, Constable.
Thank you, Mrs. Gaynor. Special town meeting. We move to Article 1.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Milius.
I move that the town vote to transfer from undesignated fund balance the sum of $7,000 in order to improve the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems in the town hall.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have a recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends.
It's been moved and seconded. Finance Committee recommends Article 1. Mr. Milius or someone who would like to speak to this article?
I'll start to speak for it. Perhaps we can get the Director of Building Maintenance to speak for it as well. Basically, this is to take care of an issue. We have 2 offices, or one office and a potential office, in the town hall that never got covered by any HVAC system. Literally no heat, no AC. One of them happens to be the Veterans Agent's office. This is what it's going to take to add to the system and take care of these 2 particular rooms so that we can use them properly. Does Mr. Materno want to speak to it?
Building maintenance. So this is the cheapest way we've found to be able to do this. We have forced hot air, forced cool air in the building now. To tie into that system or to increase the size, we'd have to totally revamp this. So this is a standalone mini split system to handle just these two rooms. We're going to handle the electrical on our own. So this is the cheapest way we can figure to get this. And right now, the Veterans Agent has no heat or AC. Makes it real uncomfortable. A lot of his clients are older. They should at least have that comfort. Thank you.
Any discussion on Article 1 of the special town meeting?
William Pond, 40 Oak Place. I don't see any numbers here for how much it's going to cost.
It was in the motion, $7,000.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Yes, no? I didn't, okay, see movement. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 1 signify by saying, well, not saying aye, raise your green sheets. Any opposed? Mr. Gaynor, how's your room look?
That's a unanimous yes, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, and it's a green here. Article 1 passes. It has taken me less than a half hour before I've gotten into trouble. I have to admit that I had forgot that as even the special town meeting is guided by a lottery system, so we're going to have to draw for the rest of the 4. I apologize, and my fault for messing up already. So, Ms. Gaynor, the next article.
Article 5.
Article 5.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Milius.
I will move this for the initiative. I move that the town vote to transfer from the stabilization fund the sum of $136,000 to construct a sidewalk along Plymouth Street, Route 106, from one end of Cranberry Drive to the other end of Cranberry Drive. Said costs to include and not be limited to engineering and design, construction, demolition, labor, and permitting.
The article has been moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. The recommendation of the Finance Committee on Article 5.
The Finance Committee does not recommend.
Finance Committee does not recommend.
Is Mr. Adams present? Do you want to speak to it, Mr. Adams? I'm sorry, I'm not taking over for you, Dennis. I'm sorry.
Good morning. As stated, my name is Stephen Adams. I live at 22 Cranberry Drive. I was one of the residents to get this article signatures. We gathered 111 signatures to get this to vote today. You know, for those of you who don't know, Cranberry Drive is a horseshoe-shaped street, obviously connecting Route 106 to the ends. It is totally sidewalked on the Cranberry Drive part. The most dangerous part of this neighborhood is the unpaved shoulder of Route 106. The speed limit in front of this area is 35 miles per hour. It is clearly more of a suggestion as the average car goes 50 plus miles per hour. Demographically, this is one of the biggest neighborhoods in Halifax. There are 50 plus houses. There are 40 plus school-aged children in the area. 2 of those children are with me today. They're my children. This is why it's so important to me. As a 7-year-old, I was hit by a car on my bicycle. Luckily, I was not very injured. Luckily, the car was not going very fast. My child drives a bicycle and is 7 years old. Every day, I take him on a bike ride or a walk on this section, as do many other folks. This petition that we started had signatures not only from Cranberry Drive, but other neighborhoods including Stonyware, Clyde Bosworth, Headwaters, Christmas Tree Lane, Plymouth Street, and many others. This is a very well-traveled pedestrian route, and honestly, this neighborhood is 30 years old. This should have been taken care of 30 years ago. And I'm sorry to say that it has not to this point, but it is disheartening to me that my 7-year-old brought this to my attention asking why this section is so dangerous, knowing that I shield myself when we walk that stretch from 50-mile-an-hour cars 2 feet from my right to my children that are 1 foot to my left. It is unacceptable to me as a parent, as a resident, and I'm sure that if you had children taking this stretch every day, you would feel the same. This fact has been compounded by the pandemic. Many more walkers, bicyclists, and things in between take this same stretch, and with busing and schooling, it will be even more important to pave this stretch of sidewalk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Anyone else like to speak to the article?
Mr. Moderator, we have someone in here that would like to speak to that, please.
In the other room.
Sure. Absolutely, Mr. Gaynor.
My name is Thomas Manning. I live at 10 Sycamore Drive, right off of 106. You know, I'm listening to this gentleman and his family, and you have a problem. Maybe at this particular time we can't come up with 100,000, but maybe we can dedicate 20, 25,000 a year for the next 3, 4, 5 years. Put the money aside, dedicate that money for that particular project, and we're setting a precedent where other projects that come up, those that are emergency, we might be able to deal with them immediately. But then again, we might have to spread out the payments. Most contractors aren't going to let us, build something on our dime. And so we're going to have to turn around and maybe compromise a little bit. And I think we should we're starting this meeting right from the very beginning. And maybe pandemic or whatever, we're going to have to start changing the rules and looking at things a little differently, because we only have a certain amount of money, and everybody wants everything. Well, it's too bad. You're not going to get everything. And I think we should start off this morning being honest and truthful. We have a lot of this is a wish list, and there are a lot of things that need to come before this project. This father has issues. I understand. He's been whacked by a car. I understand. I'm a patient. I'm a transplant patient. I understand what it is to be sick and be hurt and what you need. But maybe we can sit down at the table and work something out over a long period of time. Let's dedicate 20, 25,000 a year for 4 or 5 years, get this project done, and move on.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to the article?
Gentleman right
Yes.
there.
Yes, sir, Mr. Moderator, we have another gentleman that's,
All right, hold on one moment, Mr. Gaynor. We're going to go, we'll alternate here. So, sir?
Thank you. William Pond again, 40 Oak Place. Doesn't the state have some responsibility to pay for these sidewalks along a main route like that? I thought there was something going on where the state had a responsibility to chip in on this. That's my question.
Tom, I'll take
See
it.
if we can get an answer for you. For
Mr.
that.
Moderator, I can answer that. In Halifax, all the state routes are still owned by the town. So 106, 58, 36, 105, those are all owned and maintained by the town. The state has absolutely no responsibility for maintaining those roads or putting in sidewalks along those roads.
Thank you, Mr. Seelig. Mr. Gaynor, you had a speaker?
yes, sir.
Mel Conroy, 7 Birch Road. Could the Finance Committee speak and give some clarity on their thought process in not recommending this article?
Try to get an answer for you, Mr. Conroy. Finance Committee?
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee, as I mentioned before, was faced with a long list of a lot of budget items, and we had to priority rank as many things as possible. And it's not to say that this is not an important issue, because we agree that it is an important issue. Ultimately, we decided to not recommend funding it this year, but keeping it on the table, keeping it as part of our conversation for potentially upcoming fiscal years, but also understanding that we are 4 or 5 votes at max of the town. And we encourage the members of town meeting to make the vote and the choice that makes the most sense for them. We are merely looking at it from the perspective of the budget, and that is why we provided the recommendation that we did. But again, knowing full well that the members of town meeting will vote their choice and vote how they feel at today's meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Tarzi.
In the back, Dennis.
There's a young
Yes.
lady down on the right there.
Hi, I'm Adrienne McDougall. I live at 32 Hillside. I'd just like to say it's kind of ironic. We've been asking for stop signs in one of the biggest neighborhoods, probably much bigger than Cranberry Drive, whereas we're not the most affluent neighborhood, but we are probably one of the biggest, and we've been asking for stop signs. And I think it's kind of ironic that one of the most wealthy neighborhoods is asking for $120-something thousand sidewalk. even though they have sidewalks throughout their neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
One down on the
Back
left.
left and in the back
Way
left.
down on the left.
To the left, left. Yeah, I'm going left and right.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
okay. Your left.
My left. Thank you. And I do appreciate people helping because we want to make sure everyone gets heard. Yes.
Dennis, you're doing a great job. Thanks.
That's kind of you. That's very kind of you, sir.
David Masio, 16 10th Ave. So one of the things I want to bring up, because I think a lot of people in this town are, and I'm not saying everybody, but some people are a little hesitant to speak up. We did spend $200,000 in engineering plans on the school for the re-roofing of the school. Okay, I'm a father of 3 and I can relate to this gentleman as far as that goes. Do we have Mr. Seelig, our town administrator, working as hard and diligently on these types of projects to get grants for these types of situations? And as this young lady said here, with the stop signs inside of the Lincoln Street avenues, there's no stop signs. There's a plethora of children going through there. So these are some matters that really need to get brought up and start using our funds. The Finance Committee recommending these things to actually improving our town and not using the money for litigation on things that have already been in place for a long time. So I think we really need to start considering what this town does need for the children, because this is the reason why we're here. It's so that our children are raised in a town that we're all proud of and they can be safe throughout these streets. One last thing I want to say before I finish, and I apologize everyone. Mr. Milius, I applaud your speech this morning about safety PPE, but you are the only man in this room not wearing a mask. Please show this town the respect that they deserve by putting a mask on your face.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mazza. I'll take that under advisement.
One of the things I will remind town members of is that, and I appreciate a lot of times the passion that we have for these items, either for or against them, is that one of the things that I learned from a town moderator who I had a great respect for was T.P. Elliott Smith, and he used to remind me whenever I spoke in front of town meeting that you need to stay within the 4 corners of the issue at hand. All the issues are connected to other issues, but in order for us to get through it, let's try to focus on the pluses and minuses, the advantages, disadvantages of the article before us. But thank you again, David and others, for all of your input. Are there others that have anything else to say on this article?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, sir.
Just to be clear, our town administrator did attempt to get funding for this project on at least 2 different types of funding and was turned down on both. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands there was an attempt to find funds to take care of this.
Thank you, Mr. Milius.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
I was wondering if we could ask the highway superintendent his thoughts on this. Whether
Highway
or not
Superintendent, sir, available?
Like Mr. Milius said, myself and Charlie tried to get grants for this. We got rejected. Even after we got rejected, Charlie tried again. So
I was going to tell you to stand closer to the mic, but obviously that wasn't a good thing, right? Yeah, I just want to make sure people heard you. Could you repeat that? Because I had trouble hearing you.
So myself and Charlie tried to get a grant the first time. That failed. Charlie on his own went and tried to do it again. So Charlie did try to get grant money for that. Myself, I understand the problem, but there's a lot of other streets in this town that don't have sidewalks either. If we can get grant money, we can do it. If not, then it's going to come out of the taxpayer's pocket. So it's up to you. If you want to vote yes, vote yes. If you don't, then vote no.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Gaynor, any discussion there?
No, sir, we're all set here.
All right. All of those, I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. Thank you. The town council reminded me that this vote requires 2/3 in order to pass. So, for all of those in favor of Article 5, please hold up the green cards. For all of those who are against, hold up red. Yeah, it's read in this room, Mr. Gaynor.
Mr. Moderator, we have 2 in favor and 16 against. Does
Okay.
not pass in here.
So Article 5 does not pass. Mrs. Gaynor?
Article 3,
Special Town Meeting Article 3.
We're passing over.
Right. Mr. Moderator, I move to pass over Article 3.
Okay, you're being asked
Second.
to pass over. It's been moved and seconded to pass over Article 3. You're being asked to make no action on Article 3, the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends pass over.
Recommends pass over. Any discussion on passing over Article 3? Mr. Gaynor, any indication of desire for anyone to speak?
No, sir, no indication here.
Okay, all of those in favor of passing over Article 3, please signify by holding up your green cards. I'm going to have to find a way to rephrase that, you realize, right? Okay. All those who are not in favor of passing over Article 3, please raise your red cards. Mr. Gaynor, what does it look like in your room, sir?
Positive vote to pass over, sir.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
It's a yes vote to pass over here.
Yes, on your side, and it was decidedly yes to pass over here. Article 3 is being passed over. Mrs. Gaynor?
Article 4,
Article 4, special town meeting. Speaking to the article?
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Garin.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to pay for additional traffic enforcement by the police department.
Okay, we have a motion on
Second.
Article 4 and a second recommendation of the Finance Committee on Article 4.
The Finance Committee does not recommend.
Does not recommend. Speaking to the articles, Board of Selectmen?
Speak to it if you want me to.
The article was placed because of the complaints concerning traffic on certain streets in the town and the lack of staff in order to appropriately cover it. We were hoping that with the $20,000 would allow for overtime or any other business that we could take care of, requested by the police department.
Any discussion on Article 4?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes. Ms. Tarzan.
The Finance Committee's reason for not recommending are twofold. One is procedural in a way, and the other one is more substantive. On the procedural side, you'll see in other points on this town meeting and in previous town meetings where the Finance Committee does not recommend that we place articles that contribute to payroll expenses outside the operating budget. We understand the intention behind this article was to add to traffic enforcement, but at the point where it's adding to payroll expenses, we feel that this needs to be built into the operating budget that you'll see in the annual town meeting on Article 4. Secondly, we find that appropriating $20,000 to traffic enforcement would place an undue burden on and a difficulty in assessing the expenditure, meaning what does that $20,000 on traffic enforcement mean? Does it mean strict overtime? If so, how next year do we approach the town and say, okay, here's a report on how exactly that $20,000 was spent? At what point is it traffic enforcement? At what point is it not? Is it additional signage? Is it not? Is it additional education? Is it not? That was our issue substantively with appropriating $20,000, earmarking it for traffic enforcement. We do understand, again, the intention behind it is to improve the safety of the town and to address issues that folks are experiencing and witnessing, but we don't feel that this is the best way to go about it and that it's a difficult way to try to account for how that money is actually being spent. That's not to say that the chief wouldn't do an excellent job or that he's not doing an excellent job. If anything, like I said, it would place an undue burden on him attempting to account for this $20,000 over the course of a year.
Thank you, Ms. Tarzi. Any discussion on the article? Seeing none here, Mr. Gaynor, do you have any indication?
Yes, sir, we have one
Okay,
gentleman.
thank you.
Hi, my name is Thomas Manning. I live at 10 Sycamore Drive. I'm reading this Article 4 operating budget. It's very,
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you speak up or step closer to the mic? Thank you.
Sure. I'm looking at this Article 4, and it's very, very vague to determine what sums of money the town will raise and appropriate. And when you say funds, are these taxes, fees, or wherever? Fines, including appropriations from available funds? What funds?
You asking?
I'm asking you a series of questions, and then you can follow up.
Well, no, that's fine. I just want to make sure we answer them. So your first question is, what would be the source of funding for this article if moved?
Sure, because I mean, it could be special assessments, it could be anything. So, yeah, I'd like to have a pretty good idea where these monies are going to come from and where they're going to go, where they're going to end up. Are they going to be, you say it's going to be going over here, but it might be over here. It's very, very vague.
Okay, and honestly, I think that was the point that the Finance Committee was making. Let me see if I can get an answer for those two questions, sir, okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so can we
Mr. Moderator, on raise and appropriate, what we typically talk about at town meeting is our local receipts and our personal and property taxes. So that's where that money would come from.
Okay.
So that's where the money would be coming from, and is there any more clarity? And I think the Finance Committee was asking the same question on where these specific, what would these specific funds be used for? I hear traffic.
So I don't want to speak for Mr. Guerin, but there was a number of issues that have come up since I've been on the board about traffic, truck traffic, and what it was looking to be used this time for would be to have police officers do more traffic enforcement on this $20,000. I understand the Finance Committee's vote on this, and I understand they would rather see the money be put into the regular budget. So.
Okay. All right, sir. I don't know if that helps. Does that get you any closer to your question being answered?
Yes, and then it says including appropriations for available funds to defray charges and expenses to the town. And this whole paragraph here, to me, if you take it as a whole, it's very vague. It's like almost like hocus pocus. It says including appropriations from available funds. Well, appropriations from available funds, funds that are available right this moment to defray charges and expenses to the town. So we have appropriations from available funds to defray charges from expenses to the town.
Dennis,
right away it's saying you already have the money there from available funds, but you don't want to pay the bills. You want to defray the charges and expenses to the town.
I'm still hearing two basic questions, and let me see if I can get any more clarity for you. Again, you seem to be asking about what are the sources, where the money would come from, and then two, where the money would be expended. And
Mr. Moderator, just to clarify, there may be some confusion between the two Article 4s. We're talking about Article 4 of the special town meeting, not Article 4 of the annual town meeting. The speakers, for instance, is mentioning words that are used in Article 4 of the annual town meeting. Specifically, the motion for Article 4 of the special town meeting for traffic enforcement is $20,000, raise and appropriate. As Selectman Andrews mentioned, raise and appropriate for the town of Halifax means the money is coming either from property taxes and personal property taxes or our local receipts, everything from licenses and permits to motor vehicle excise, the ambulance fees, everything else that the town collects in terms of money. If this passes, then an additional $20,000 would be set aside for police traffic enforcement. Generally, that probably means, active police officers out there on patrol doing traffic enforcement. Eventually, we're going to get to Article 4 of the annual town meeting, which is in the big book, which is what you're mentioning in terms of the wording of defray and such. And we'll get to the specific line items in Article 4. And if you have questions about sources of funding for Article 4 of the annual town meeting, I'm sure between the Finance Committee, the town accountant, and others, we'll be able to answer where that money is coming from.
Does that help, sir?
You got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions around Article 4 of the special town meeting? Well, if I see any here, Mr. Gaynor, any other indication of further discussion?
No, sir. No further discussion here.
Okay. All those in favor of Article 4, please signify by putting up the green placard. All those who are not in favor of Article 4, please put up your red. We see red in this room, Mr. Gaynor.
Yes, sir. It's unanimous red in this room.
Red. Okay, Article 4 does not pass. Ms. Gaynor.
Article 2. Article 2.
The last article?
Yes.
Article 2 is up, the last article of the special town meeting. Proposed by the Board of Selectmen.
The three of you signed it. Someone move it?
But to see if the town will vote to, I don't have
I moved at the town.
Want me to move it?
the, yeah, if you have the, I don't have the motion.
Article 2.
Sorry. I move that the town vote to transfer from undesignated fund balance the sum of $30,000 to be added to the unemployment compensation account.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pass Article 2. Recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends.
Finance Committee recommends. Speaking to the article?
So with town employment, municipal employment, the town does not pay unemployment insurance like a typical business does in each paycheck or each pay period or quarterly. The town only puts money into the fund as it's being used, and currently there are claims against the unemployment, so we have to add more money into it.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded, and the recommendation of the Finance Committee in favor. Did I hear that already? Yes. Or did I imagine that?
No, the Finance Committee recommends.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
I thought so. It only took me a minute to forget. All right. Any discussion on Article 2? I don't see any here. Mr. Gaynor, any indication of need for discussion?
No, sir. There's no indication.
Okay. All those in favor of passing Article 2, please signify by holding your green cards up. All those who are opposed to Article 2? It looks green on this end, Mr. Gaynor. How about your end?
Passes 18-2 here, sir.
In favor of?
In favor, yes.
Article 2 passes. At this time, we finished the business of the special... Yes?
Yes.
We have finished the business of special town meeting and declare it closed. We will reopen our annual town meeting and take up, what we're going to do, hopefully to expedite matters. I have been told that I have the ability to take a group of articles that are going to be passed over or being recommended to be passed over and try to take them together in order to expedite the town meeting. Now, as I mentioned before, there is no attempt here to limit discussion. What we're going to do is similar to the way we vote some parts of the budget, is I'm going to read through the list of articles that are being passed over by those folks basically who have proposed them originally, have decided to then want to pass over those articles, which means town meeting would be taking no action on there. What I'm going to do is read through a list. I believe there are 15 of them. If you have a question on any of those articles, please yell out, "Hold," and we will go back and try to answer the question you might have The intention is to take them as a group and vote to pass over, so it kind of moves things along a little bit quicker, gives us more time to handle some of the other items before town meeting. So, the articles that are being considered to be passed over, and I will read these slowly to give you time in case you have a hold or a question. Article 5?
No.
No?
No.
What do you mean, no?
Dennis?
Yes.
Dennis, if it's permissible, I'll read the numbers off to you. If it's permissible, I'll read the numbers off to you.
Oh, sure. Yes, please. And thank you, Charlie. I'd appreciate that because I'm probably reading from the wrong
Okay,
place.
so these are the articles the intentions are to pass over as a group. And this is the annual town meeting. Article 9, 10, 13, 17, 33, 34, 36, 36, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 47, 50, and 52. That's 16 articles. These are on the annual town meeting. If you wish to have Dennis hold anything for a moment, if you have a question, please yell which article you wish held. We'll read the
All right,
numbers again.
I think I have them,
I'll
Charlie, to
read the
reread
numbers
them.
again.
I think my microphone's better.
So number 9,
yeah.
10, 13, 17, 33, 34, 36, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 47, 50, and 52.
And we will give you a few minutes. It's important if you had any of those any questions around those articles. And again, we're just trying to move things along. Mr. Gaynor, any indication there that there are articles that folks are interested in asking a question about?
No, sir, no indication.
Okay. Here, seeing no other indication at this point, I would entertain a motion to pass over the 16 articles that were read. Do I need a second on that, or I'm proposing it?
Tom? Yep. Somebody move?
I'll move to pass over those articles as read.
Okay, there's been a motion, but
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those who are in favor of passing over the 16 articles that were just read, please signify by holding up your green cards. Any opposed to passing over? Mr. Gaynor, how does it look on your end?
Unanimous to pass over.
Unanimous, and it was clearly green here. So articles that were just read, 16, have all been passed over. Thank you for that. It will save us some time. We are in the part of the meeting where we are going through Article 1 through 4 in order before we go into the lottery, and we left off taking up Article 2. So Article 2 is before the town.
Mr. Moderator, I just want to clarify for those in attendance that the current composition per the town bylaws of the Wage and Personnel Board is, in the absence of any citizen volunteers, to send one member of the Board of Selectmen and one member of the Finance Committee to Wage and Personnel. I am that person, so I am going to present the articles that have been brought forward by Wage and Personnel and answer any questions that folks may have about them as Wage and Personnel. I will then also, though, present the recommendation of the Finance Committee, which occurred in a completely separate meeting in a completely separate vote, and I can also speak to any questions about the way the Finance Committee voted on these. I just didn't want to confuse anyone by seeing the same person talking a lot for the next few minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Tarzi.
On Article 2, Amendment 1, I move that the town vote to change the grade for the position of Animal Control Officer from grade 4 to grade 8.
Motion and a second.
It's a wage and personnel's motion.
Second.
It's been seconded. Recommendation of the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee recommends.
Speaking to the article.
Okay, now speaking from the Wage and Personnel Board side. We approached this request the same way that we've approached all other position requests. It was originally supposed to just be a potential increase in the number of hours. However, when myself and the other Board of Selectmen member of Wage and Personnel reviewed the position description for the Animal Control Officer, which was not reviewed last year when we assessed almost every other position in the town, we graded this position independently of one another using the rubric on which all other positions are scored. We ended up independently coming to a score on the rubric that related to grade 8. We felt comfortable with this recommendation given the exigencies of the position, including additional potential liability to which the town could be exposed if this person, whoever occupies this position, were to do their job incorrectly or to not do something important. In addition, we felt that the amount of interaction with external agencies and the working conditions that this person may be exposed to all merited the position of, or merited rather the position being compensated at the level of a grade 8.
Thank you, Ms. Tarzi. It's been moved and seconded. Recommendation by the Finance Committee. Any further discussion on this portion of Article 2? Yep.
Mr. Moderator?
Hang on one second. Yep.
I didn't think you saw me. Do you want me to wait or do you want her to go?
I did not. That's okay. Yeah.
For these changes to the grade changes, can you please attach a dollar amount so we know what we're talking about when we're changing someone from a 4 to an 8? What does that cost us?
Okay. Same question. Can we get a...
Sure thing. If you'll permit me for a moment to confer with the town accountant just to make sure I have the correct number for, because there's multiple steps within each grade and I want to make sure I have the correct number.
Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, Sandy, the town accountant. Everyone has this kind of highlighter yellow-green piece of paper in front of you that has the current wage scales on them. If you flip over to what to me looks like the back, you'll see the grades on the left-hand side. So what we're talking about is a grade 4, which if this person were to be at the first step, we were going to use that top number of 1665. To a grade 8, which if you go down a little bit, still kind of towards the left side of the paper, would be 2196.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Moderator, I was the other member of the Wage and Personnel at the time we did the regrading, and there was actually no person in this position. The position was open when we graded this, so this was a strict regrading based on the job description and what the categories that had been used in the previous regrading sessions in the last year. Melinda?
Yep. Great, thank you. Thank you, Gordon. Mr. Gaynor?
Yes, sir. We have one person that would like to speak to this, please.
Thank you.
Ed Murphy, 20 Larry Ave. I have a question. They mentioned hours in the beginning of it, and what are the current hours of this position? And if there were a change in the pay grade, is there going to be more hours involved for whoever the person is filling that position? So exactly, what's the fine-tunings of this position, and how many hours are we looking at per week that this person is going to be working? Thank you.
Ms. Tarzi, or is there someone else? Can you answer that?
Sure, I can speak to the I would ask the chief to clarify the number of weekly hours, but I'll just speak to the original intent behind this, which I think will clarify the previous question. Originally, we were evaluating whether or not this position needed more hours or needed to be, at first it was just a question of more hours. When Mr. Andrews and I looked at the job description, we were concerned that all the responsibilities weren't actually being reflected in the position description as written, which is why we did the regrade. We did not discuss as wage and personnel, nor as, put my other hat on, as a finance committee, any change in the number of hours, only in the amount of compensation that that person was being paid for the current slate of the current work week. But I would ask Chief Shaw's if he wouldn't mind clarifying, because I forget now the exact number of hours a week for which this person's scheduled.
So there is a current number of hours that is not anticipated to be changed by this portion of Article 2.
Correct. So this vote that the both the Wage and Personnel Committee and Finance Committee took was specifically about the hourly compensation rate and not about how many hours for which we'd be compensating the person, if that makes sense.
Correct. Do we have an answer for the gentleman, just to let him know what the hours are? Is there?
The chief is there, Dennis.
John Shaws, Chief of Police. The hours are 18 hours per week.
Thank you. So there are currently 18 hours a week and no intention to change that based on this. This is a rate and scale grade change. Does that help, sir?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none here, Mr. Gaynor?
Yeah,
There's
No
one.
Oh, I'm sorry. There is?
one here, right here.
Right up front. Yeah, I love how people think that I can see that, but that's all right. As long as we're not missing you. Yes.
Hi, this is Amy Troop, 10 Hillside Ave. Just question on the hours. Is there a plan to increase the amount of hours?
Can we answer that?
As of right now, speaking from the Wage and Personnel and the Finance Committee's perspective, we've had no requests put in from the police department to increase the number of hours. So if that were to be something that they wanted to request, it would have to wait until the next fiscal year for them to make the request, and then it would go through the same process by which members of town meeting would take a vote on that increased compensation for the hours. That would come to Finance Committee. I don't believe that would come to Wage procedurally.
Thank you. So that roughly comes to $5,000 a year for the 18 hours per week.
I think so.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions? Hopefully I'm seeing none or seeing none. Mr. Gaynor, you said none there?
That's correct. No indication further.
Okay. All those in favor of this portion of Article 2, Section 1, please signify with your green cards by saying yes. All those who are not in favor, signify by the red, holding up your red card. It's green here, Mr. Gaynor. How is it there?
Unanimous here, sir. Yes.
This portion of Article 2 passes. Article 2, Section 2.
Okay, Article 2, Section 2. And if folks don't want to have to page through the town meeting warrant, you'll see that there's a table with all of these amendments that I'm bringing up that might be a little bit easier to follow along and check off, and then to use the warrant as reference. Article 2, Amendment 2. I move that the town vote to change the grade for the position of Director of Building Maintenance from grade 10 to grade 14.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends.
Speaking to this article, Ms. Starzik.
Even before we understood the exigencies of COVID-19 and the need to elevate our levels of attention on various buildings and facilities, we had been considering having the Director of Building Maintenance take over many of the responsibilities of maintaining the school building. So similar to the process that I just explained for the Animal Control Officer, myself and Mr. Andrews each evaluated a new position description for a Director of School and Building Maintenance to include, as I mentioned, being the point person for maintenance at the schools, coordinating among contractors, etc. We independently graded the position and then in open meeting compared our scores. those scores using the band of scores correlated to grades that I just talked about, place this newly described position at a grade 14. Wage and Personnel did recommend that, and we feel that it's commensurate with the additional responsibilities, including just the sheer square footage that this person would be responsible for. And if anyone else involved in the process has anything else to add, please do feel free to fill in any parts of the conversation that I missed.
Mr. Moderator?
Sir.
I think Melinda covered a lot of what happened with the position. We also had it at the elementary school. We had a head custodian who was far above and beyond in his job capabilities. That person became the director of facilities for Silver Lake, and he will be interacting with the director. So we have it listed as the director of building maintenance here. Both individuals have been working excellent together. So we will see a savings in the school line for the what was the head custodian. There's savings there. And just knowing that the amount of work that we've seen over the past 6 months and the leadership that the person has, and I think the person needs to have in this position to do the job correctly. I think when we were looking at regrading the position, we need to have somebody of the person that we have with these capabilities to be successful for the town, to look out for the buildings, because that's the number one, liability that the town has, to make sure that these buildings are kept up to date. And I think we need to have somebody with this experience in that position.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Any discussion? Mr. Gaynor, any indication of discussion?
Yes, sir. We have one gentleman.
Mel Conroy, 7 Birch Road. Will a percentage of the maintenance salary be supported by the school budget, or will 100% be in the operational budget?
Try to get an answer for you, Mr. Conroy.
Mr. Moderator, the
Yes, sir.
budget for this is in the town. We did see a reduction for that line within the school, but because they're two separate lines, we're not mixing payment from the school to fund this position plus the town. It's a straight town position.
Any other questions, discussion?
Yes, sir. One.
Oh, hang on.
As a follow-up, I see in the Halifax School Department budget, specifically 4110, an actual increase in custodial services, so that doesn't jive with a reduction in that line.
I might have misheard. I didn't hear you say there was a reduction necessarily. You said it stays in our budget, that the related position you were talking about is in the school budget. Am I misunderstanding that? I want to make sure we're answering the question.
So the increase that you're seeing in the custodial services is not for that line. There was an actual reduction in that line. The person that was in that position before was receiving a stipend because he's over and above. That has been removed from the contract.
So the line item in our town budget goes down based on
When
this?
you go into the next line down, yes.
Okay. All right. And another question? Yes, ma'am.
Mary Graven, East 98, Clyde, Bosworth Road. Just wondering, so the $27,000 increase, which I think that's what it comes out to be per year for this one position, does that mean there's still the same amount of maintenance people underneath him? Is he taking on another person's role? I get that the whole world needs to be more whatever. We all have to do that, but none of us got a $27,000 increase for doing the job that we were hired to do regardless of the time. So is there any other justification? Because I just don't get it.
So I don't believe the position was regraded while they went through last year, correct, Melinda?
That is correct. So Mr. Moderator, if I may.
Sure.
From the wage and personnel perspective, again, it's not just the sheer amount of square footage that this position would be taking on. It's also in having to oversee additional contractors that would be specific to maintenance or repair requests only at the school. That would, in essence, bring more people under the purview, more workers and subcontractors under the purview of this position, which is something that we took into account. It also, to address the question of the hiring of additional staff, adding to this current position helps to obviate the need for some other responsibilities that we would have had to account for with additional personnel, as Mr. Andrews mentioned before. And because this was not a position that was evaluated last year, and as I mentioned, even before we understood what was going to need to happen to buildings per public safety guidelines and state orders, we were already considering the gravity of adding the school building to this particular position. So that was the justification for Wage and Personnel's recommendation, not a conversation we took lightly, and as I mentioned, completely independent grading, held a discussion in open meeting, and then we brought it to Finance Committee where we took a completely separate vote on it and had a separate discussion there just from the financial side. So we appreciate that this is a major change, but we think that this is a major change commensurate with a very significant change in the job description, which is what Wage and Personnel specifically is focused on, making sure that the actual duties that someone is undertaking every single day are being correctly and accurately reflected in the job description on which their compensation is based.
Thank you, Ms. Tarzi. Other questions? The item? Seeing none here, Mr. Gaynor?
Yes, I do have a gentleman here that'd like to speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
Ed Murphy, 20 Larry Ave. So essentially they're saying he will be taking on more responsibility for the position. And if so, is he capable to take on more responsibility at an increased rate? So is that what's happening here? Because he's getting more, he's going to be compensated better for what he's going to be performing.
Ms. Tarzi?
The way that, and again, this was a procedural topic that we discussed in open meeting, was the person who occupies the current position of Director in Building Maintenance was indeed a part of the conversation, but did not have a vote in how we graded, was not part of the grading process, nothing to that effect. Whoever occupies the position, should this position pass and be regraded and have these additional responsibilities, the person who currently occupies that role has the ability to say, no, I don't want to take on that additional responsibility. This was not the job description that I was hired under, and therefore I do not agree, I do not consent to this. In which case, if at that time or any other time in the future we had to go out and hire, which is again something that Wage and Personnel always considers, we want to make sure that we're providing a job description for the job that we need, that is accurate, that puts us at a competitive compensation rate, that allows us to attract, select, and retain the best personnel.
So if I may, and this is true, I believe, of personnel issues in general, is that very often in this article we're enabling and we're trying to build either job descriptions or grades that are commensurate to the positions, but we're not necessarily talking about someone receiving increases at this point. I mean, I think that's part of what I'm hearing in the questions. Is that correct?
If this were to pass, and Mr. Seeley can correct me, or Ms. Nolan can correct me if I have the procedure wrong, because it's a bit odd that we're doing this in the midst of having a person filling the position. If we were to pass this and create this Director of School and Building Maintenance at a grade 14, the person currently occupying the Director of Building Maintenance at a grade 10, we had the option of either accepting the new position, including the new responsibilities, at the grade 14 level, or deciding that the job was not a good fit for them, in which case, or any point in the future when the position was vacant, we would use this updated job description that we graded and this rate of compensation that we'll vote on today to post for an opening.
Mr. Seeley, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
We have one in the audience.
More questions? Yep.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'd like to address this article myself. As the chairman of the Municipal and School Building Committee, I'd just like to say that Scott Materna has more than demonstrated his abilities to effectively and go way above and beyond what he's actually his job description is what he was hired for. These new duties and whatnot, I would only hope that Mr. Materna would continue to demonstrate his superior supervisory position and what he's done and what he's done for the town, is even as far as proficiency in the job as well as saving the town money. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that, although I'm going to suggest again that we're talking about positions and pay grades, not necessarily people in the positions at this point. I don't mean to be disparaging about that, but okay.